By the strength of God, we can achieve the unachievable. We can do the impossible. By the strength and the wisdom of God, there are things that one can do that's unimaginable. When you look into the scriptures, when you look into Exodus chapter 2, we look into the life of Moses. Moses was called by God. From the time he was born, we see the hand of God over his life. We see how God protected and preserved him when the enemy tried to destroy him, killed all the babies around, all the children around. But God saw to it that Moses was preserved, because God had a purpose over Moses' life. God had a plan over Moses' life. But the thing is, as Moses grew up, we see in Exodus chapter 2, verses 11 onwards, it says, "Now it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out to his brethren and looked at their burdens. And he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brethren. So he looked this way and that way, and when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand." So now we see God's plan and purpose was that Moses would be the deliverer for the people of Israel, that he would be the one who would lead the people out into the promised land. Now, as Moses grew up, he begins to see his brethren, his people suffering. The next thing that he does is he wants to deliver his brethren. He wants to help that brother who's being burdened by the Egyptian. And with his strength, with his wisdom, with his understanding, he goes and he kills that Egyptian. What comes about next is we begin to see Moses running away. He had to run away for the fear of Pharaoh. And we see then from then on he's in the wilderness. His life is a life in the wilderness. He gets married there, and then he begins to be a shepherd of sheep, looking after the flock of Jethro. And from there we begin to see now God working in his life. God begins to reveal himself to Moses. God begins to direct Moses, and then he sent back, or he goes back as the deliverer of the people of Israel, but now in the strength of God. And we see how Moses overcame Pharaoh. We see how Moses led the people of Israel out towards the promised land. What I want to speak to you is, with your strength you can do, but with God's strength you can do much more. I want to tell you, God has a purpose for each one of us, but let us yield to God. And when we yield to him, we will see his purpose being established in a greater measure. Without God you can do, but with God you can do much more. Today I want to encourage you who's watching, surrender yourself to God. Yield to God. Yield to God. Be moved by his strength. Be moved by his guidance. Let his wisdom lead you. And I tell you, you will achieve much in your life.